Meghan Markle as previously having been a, quote, yacht girl, there have been more revelations going viral from the past. And I want to show you this.
Harry, who's that standing next to the Queen? Is that a servant? That's what Harry wrote in his book Spare. How stupid is this man that he actually believes it? Or is it that he wanted to believe it?
She was a yacht girl. That's right. It's mentioned in the book. Meghan used to entertain as a yacht girl.
Before most people had finished their morning coffee, 6 unmarked police vehicles were already positioned outside a Norfolk estate. Officers moved inside with search warrants. Hard drives were removed, phones were bagged, laptops seized, filing cabinets opened. And the biggest royal criminal development in nearly 4 centuries was quietly underway before the news cycle even had time to process what was happening. Every major outlet covered the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Every channel ran the footage. Every commentator gave their verdict.
Britain's former Prince Andrew.
The reports are that Prince Andrew, the former Prince Andrew, has been arrested.
But here is the part that keeps getting buried beneath the headline. This story is no longer about Andrew. It stopped being about Andrew the moment those search warrants were executed. Because what matters now, what has fundamentally and permanently changed, is what is on those devices. And more specifically, whose name might be inside them.
Whoa, okay. The House and Habit bombshell investigation into Meghan Markle is close to dropping. Meghan, this is historic. There has not been a crisis like this in 90 years.
There is a woman in Montecito, California, who spent 8 years making sure her pre-royal past stayed buried. 8 years of carefully managed silence. 8 years of controlled narrative. 8 years of legal pressure, applied to anyone who got too close to questions she didn't want asked. And on the morning of February 19th, every single year of that effort became potentially irrelevant.
Called Kevin Blatt. Now, he is a celebrity tape broker, ladies, where he describes a 2018 call from a woman claiming to possess a 4-year-old tape of a Meghan who is about to marry a prince.
Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend.
And the only times she traveled and went anywhere was with him. And guess who's on the other end with her Panama hat?
We really never thought we'd see anything like this. There are currently 2 teams of police on the King's estate searching the King's property.
And they took from...
Because the one man who could confirm the questions she worked hardest to erase just had his entire digital life taken by police. And unlike every tabloid, every blogger, and every royal commentator who has ever tried to chase this story,
I certainly think, this guy, Andrew, what he's done to this family is absolutely appalling, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
the investigators holding those devices cannot be threatened, cannot be pressured, and cannot be bought. Most people hear the word arrest and picture handcuffs.
And here we have Andrew, with whom looks like Marcus Anderson. This is in 2001, when Meghan Markle would have allegedly been on 3rd year. Meghan Markle hardly spent any time at Northwestern University. And I wonder if Prince Andrew's going to come out and say, hey, Harry, I did your wife quite a few times on yachts before you got...
The handcuffs are almost irrelevant. The real event happened before Andrew ever sat in a police vehicle. It happened the moment Thames Valley Police walked through the doors of Royal Lodge in Windsor and a second property in Norfolk, armed with warrants covering both addresses. Search warrants are not surgical. Investigators do not arrive with a shopping list of specific items and politely ignore everything else. When police execute a warrant of this scope, covering 2 separate properties connected to a man at the center of a decade-long investigation, they take everything that stores data: hard drives, laptops, tablets, phones, USB sticks, memory cards, personal correspondence.
Jessica Reed Krause writes, I have all the scrubbed info. Soho, Epstein connections. Now that is clearly a reference to Soho House. Photos and mistreated staff as meaning anonymous sources detailing what it's like to work for.
Printed documents, filing cabinets, anything that could contain communication, contact, or record of any kind. Legal analysts who reviewed the case were specific about what comes next. Forensic work on seized digital devices is not fast, it is methodical, it is thorough, and it takes months. Everything that was stored on those devices, every message, every contact, every photo, every travel record, every guest list, every private communication spanning decades of Andrew's social life, is now sitting in an evidence room being examined by people with no obligation to protect anyone named inside it. The misconduct in public office charge brought Andrew to that room, but seized material does not come with a filter. Investigators pull the thread they came for, and everything attached to that thread comes with it. Long before Meghan Markle walked down the aisle at Windsor Castle, she was building a network. And networks of that kind, the ones that connect a working actress on a cable television show in Toronto to billionaires, financiers, and some of the most exclusive private gatherings in the world, do not build themselves through auditions and open calls. Reports suggest, and it is important to be clear that these claims have never been verified, that Meghan attended elite social gatherings during her pre-royal years, where introductions were not made with business cards, where reputations were built not on talent but on access, and where the lines between networking and something else entirely were not always clearly defined. These are persistent allegations that have circulated for years and have been consistently denied. But they have also consistently refused to disappear. One name that keeps surfacing in these conversations is Ron Burkle, a billionaire investor photographed alongside Meghan at a Soho house opening in Istanbul in 2015. Multiple independent investigators have flagged that gathering as significant, noting that Burkle's name has appeared in other investigations that overlap uncomfortably with the same social orbit that ultimately brought Andrew down. Whether those overlaps are meaningful or coincidental has never been established, but the questions exist and they are documented. One insider who spent years tracking these connections described the situation with a line that is difficult to forget. Scorpions don't sleep. They plot sometimes for years. The suggestion being that the full picture of Meghan's pre-royal social world has been carefully and patiently assembled over time, waiting for the moment when it could no longer be dismissed. Andrew's arrest may be exactly that moment. In 2019, Sarah Ferguson went on the record about Meghan Markle. She told Vogue Arabia she could relate to her. She called her modern and fabulous. She said she had been in Meghan's shoes herself. This was a public, voluntary, enthusiastic alignment with the newest and most controversial member of the royal family. Nobody forced her. Nobody asked her to say it. She said it because she wanted to. By 2023, something had changed. When the Telegraph asked Ferguson directly about Meghan, her answer was not lukewarm. It was strange. She said, and this is a direct quote on the record, "I don't really know Meghan. I haven't really met her." Here is the problem with that statement. Harry confirmed in his own published memoir, Spare, that Sarah Ferguson came to Royal Lodge, stood outside with the couple, demonstrated how to curtsy properly, and Meghan copied her. They were together. They spoke. They shared a significant moment before one of the most important introductions of Meghan's life. Ferguson taught her how to bow before the Queen of England. And then 4 years later, she told a national newspaper she barely knew who Meghan was. People do not publicly distance themselves from someone this visible, this scrutinized, and this controversial without a reason. Especially not someone who once called her modern and fabulous. Something between 2019 and 2023 made Sarah Ferguson decide that being on record as a Meghan ally was no longer a position she wanted to hold. And now consider where Ferguson is today. Reports suggest she has been offered significant financial deals for a tell-all interview. Palace insiders are reportedly terrified she will speak freely. One source was quoted saying plainly, "Andrew has had his chances to tell his story. Now it's Fergie's time." The question is what exactly Fergie plans to say when that moment arrives. To understand why Andrew's arrest changes everything, you need to understand what Andrew's life looks like right now. There is no title. King Charles stripped them. There is no residence. Royal Lodge has been the subject of ongoing disputes, and he no longer holds the protection of the crown over it. His brother will not use his first name in public statements. Reports suggest his daughter Eugenie has cut off contact entirely. The Virginia Giuffre civil case was settled under terms he has never publicly explained. And now there is a charge that carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. That is the man sitting across from investigators. not the Duke of York with palace lawyers on speed dial and institutional protection closing ranks around him. That man is gone. What remains is someone with no loyalty left to protect, no shield above him, no future to safeguard, and a potential life sentence in front of him if he does not give investigators something useful. The dynamics of that situation are not complicated. A man who has always believed the rules did not apply to him, royal biographers have described Andrew in exactly those terms, has spent his entire life trading on connections, access, and the currency of knowing things that other people wanted kept quiet. That currency does not disappear when the handcuffs come out. It becomes the only asset he has left. The question is not whether Andrew will protect other people's secrets. People in that position do not protect secrets. They trade them. The question is simply how quickly that trade happens and whose name gets mentioned first. For years, Meghan Markle made a very specific and very public argument. She said the institution protected Andrew while it simultaneously attacked her. She made this case in the Oprah interview. She made it in the Netflix documentary. She made it in every conversation about how the royal family handled public criticism. And she was not wrong. The double standard was real. It was documented. It was indefensible. But here is what that argument required in order to work. It required the two stories to be entirely separate. Andrew's story over there, Meghan's story over here. His past in one box, her past in another. The argument only functions if those boxes never touch, and this is where things get genuinely complicated. Because the pre-royal questions that have circulated about Meghan for years, the social circles, the elite gatherings, the network of introductions, the connections nobody has ever cleanly traced, those questions do not live in a completely separate universe from the world that Andrew inhabited. They overlap, not provably, not definitively, but enough that the overlap itself has been the subject of documented investigation for years. If Andrew's devices contain material that touches those questions, names, communications, travel records, any documented connection, then the double standard argument does not just stop working. It becomes the most dangerous thing Meghan ever said publicly, because it draws a direct line between her story and his. And that line now runs straight into a Thames Valley police evidence room. This is the single most important factual shift in this entire story, and it is not a dramatic exaggeration. It is a legal reality. Before February 19, 2026, everything that circulated about Meghan's pre-royal past lived in a very specific category: persistent rumors, unverified allegations, online speculation, forum threads. The kind of content that legal teams could point to and dismiss as conspiracy, as gossip, as the predictable noise that surrounds any famous woman who married into royalty. That category came with a ceiling. It could damage reputation, but it could not establish fact. After February 19, the category changed. Because the questions that have circulated for years are no longer solely in the hands of bloggers, social media detectives, and anonymous forum accounts. They are potentially sitting inside seized devices in an evidence room, accessible to investigators with warrants, and no obligation to protect anyone whose name appears inside them. The arrest did not prove anything about Meghan Markle. It is critical to be absolutely clear about that, but it changed the conditions under which the questions exist. Rumor lives in gossip columns. Evidence lives in court records. Virginia Giuffre spent years trying to make the world listen and died before justice was fully served. Fergie publicly aligned herself with Meghan, and then quietly, carefully on the record, said she barely knew her. Tom Bower spent 2 years building a documented case and says he has more material ready for a second book. Independent investigators have described a decade of patient assembly, waiting for the moment the evidence could not be dismissed. And now, for the first time, the answers are not in the hands of gossip forums or anonymous sources. They are in the hands of investigators with badges, warrants, and months of forensic work ahead of them. Whatever Andrew knows, he no longer gets to decide who finds out. That reality, more than any rumor, any joke, any dropped deal, or any failed show, is what makes February 19, 2026 the date that changes everything.